Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that we are gathered here on the traditional lands of the Coastal Salish and Snohomish peoples. As history has progressed, we have come to understand that much of this land was taken or stolen from some of those who came before us. Our acknowledgement shows our respect for their sacrifice, has given us liberty, and has allowed us to acknowledge a wrong. Without past leaders like Native Americans, everything we have would be impossible.
Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Those were Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s words from A Testament of Hope.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood for equality. He wanted equality for all. That was his goal, and that was his dream. Not just for people of color, but everyone and anyone who was persecuted against. He dreamed of peace on earth and would not rest until his dream was fulfilled. He said, "No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like the waters and righteousness like a mighty stream."
Martin Luther King Jr. strived for social and racial justice throughout his life. His peaceful speeches, protests, sit-ins, and boycotts led to a more equal America. Not an equal America, a more equal America. He said, "Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from a cup of bitterness and hatred." He fought hatred with peace, inequalities with justice, and discrimination with impartiality.
Despite the incredible advancements that were made during the Civil Rights era, MLK's dream of equality has not yet come true. The protests over equality that began over 60 years ago are still alive today across the entire world, and they will continue as long as people are mistreated on the basis of race, the way they look, their families, their gender, or their religion.
Here's a few facts to put in perspective on the world we live in today. 34% of LGBTQ Americans have or had a friend that's been harassed while using the restroom.
92% of African Americans surveyed said discrimination against Black Americans exists today.
18% of Asian Americans say they've experienced discrimination when interacting with the police.
Nearly 1 in 5 Latino Americans have avoided medical care due to concern of being discriminated against.
Nearly half of African Americans experience racial discrimination when trying to rent an apartment or buy a home.
Only 38 states have a gender pay equity law in place today. The average pay for women in America is 88% of what men are paid for the same jobs. In our state, the great state of Washington, women make 77 cents on the dollar to their male counterparts.
This year's Martin Luther King Jr. Assembly is called A Light of Change. It is to honor the man himself who from 1955 to 1968 fought to change the world, to disassemble its deep-rooted racism and hate and build a future where people of color don't have to fight for the right to be accepted. Martin Luther King Jr. was such a bright light, and that light will never burn out.
We too can be a light of change. It is our job to plant seeds of a new generation that is more kind and equal than ever before. I want to raise my kids in a world where they don't feel like they need to hide who they truly are out of fear of judgment. As Dr. Martin Luther King once said, let justice roll like the mighty stream. Together, we can change society as we choose to individually be a light each day, in our families, in our friend groups, in our sports teams, and in every other circumstance. The only question is, what kind of light do you want to be?
My Lord, I have read this book so many times, but nowhere can I find the page that says what I experience today. shows any grace. Now I know that life was meant to be high, and that's how I learned to appreciate my God. Though my courage may be tried, I can tell you I won't hide, because the footprints show you are by my side. You can
Aretha Franklin, also known as the Queen of Soul, is the singer in this video. As one of the most successful recording artists of the rock and roll era, Franklin was a pioneer for female singers and songwriters. Her influence was vast and indelible, and she embodied American Black culture. Empathetically and without apology, Franklin shared her talent with the world and became an activist alongside Dr. King.
The video being shown was created to honor Aretha Franklin and spread awareness for the ongoing brutality endured by people of color. Through her life and legacy, Franklin embodies what it means to be a light.
A light can be anyone who sparks change. Nelson Mandela, for example, was the first Black president of South Africa, and for 20 years he directed a campaign of peaceful, non-violent defiance against the South African government and its racist policies. In 1995, Mandela founded the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, a charitable organization which aims to help individuals from birth to age 22, particularly orphans of the AIDS crisis. In 1999, he founded the Nelson Mandela Foundation to promote his vision and freedom and equality for all. Post-presidency, he raised money to build schools and clinics in South Africa's rural areas, advocated for peace and equality, and remained committed in his fight against AIDS, a disease that killed one of his sons.
A light can also be anyone who shines the way for others. In 1974, baseball legend Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's Holland mark of 714 home runs, then finished his career with numerous big league records. It was shortly after Hank Aaron's big breaking home run that Georgia Congressman Andrew Young declared, "Through his long career, Hank Aaron has been a model of humility, dignity, and quiet competence. He did not seek the adoration that is accorded to other national athletic heroes, that he has now earned it."
This year's Martin Luther King Jr. Assembly will resemble all those, like Aretha Franklin, Nelson Mandela, and Hank Aaron, who are a light of change in this world.
We hope these figures of light inspire you.
Break my faith.
Amanda Gorman is the youngest inaugural poet in U.S. history. She is also a committed advocate for the environment, racial equality, and gender justice. Her performance of the poem "The Hill We Climb" at the 2021 presidential inauguration received critical acclaim and international attention, winning #1 on the New York Times, USA Today, and the Wall Street Journal bestseller lists. Recently, Gorman published a collection of her works in Call Us What We Carry. One of the poems, The Unordinary World, encapsulates the fight to uphold justice that has occurred for decades and decades.
The worst is over, depending on who you ask. This time, we are alone. Not by command, but because all we've ever desired is second of our own. To be still and seeing, remote but non-distant, like a moon orbiting the globe it's most fond of. Now that the best has begun, depending on who you ask, we will be no worm, shrinking from all that shines. Our future is a sea, flooded with sun. Our souls so solar and soldiering. There is a cut of what's burning in all of us. Who we are, if not, what we make of the dark.
In these past 2 years, we have seen protests occur across the United States and all around the world. Many individuals use their voices to demand justice, to be lights of change, and here are a few that we would like to mention today.
Nupal Karazulu began her long history of protesting when she was in middle school, after the killing of Trayvon Martin. During the Black Lives Matter protests that have occurred these past few years, she has been an influential voice in demanding justice for Breonna Taylor through her grassroots activism at organizations such as Louisville 87.
Young activists such as Jackie James and Sophia Ongele took to social media as a way to amplify the various experiences of Black individuals. Ongele helped to create apps and email templates that users all over the world were able to use as a way to participate in the Black Lives Matter protests and lobby for change.
Maxima Guiara, an undocumented immigrant who was taken into custody as she took to the street to protest, through her help of her community, she was released and continues to light the way of change.
Chi Ose never thought that he would ever protest over anything. But after the horrific events of the past few years, he took his grief, the trauma he felt as a Black man in America, and poured it into the Black Lives Matter movement. He sought to bring political change by announcing his candidacy for the New York City Council at the young age of 22. He hoped to use the power of such a position to find light amongst the sea of darkness.
And finally, Vanessa Worry, a Black trans woman, used her position as a social welfare candidate to bring light to the voices of thousands and thousands of other Black transgender individuals.
These are just a few examples of the light bearers who have risen in these past few years. They all come from different backgrounds, have lived different experiences, but all of these individuals believe in the same light of change that inspired Martin Luther King Jr.
What are you going to be? And if you'll notice, I'm not asking what are you going to do, who are you going to be? I'm asking you about how you plan to live your life every day. How are you going to respond when you don't get that job you had your heart set on? For all of you who are going to be teachers, what are you going to do if the students in your class next year just don't respond to your lessons? For all of you going into business, how will you react when your boss gives you a goal that feels way too high? See, these are the moments that define us. Not the day you get the promotion, not the day you win Teacher of the Year, but the times that force you to claw and scratch and fight just to get through the day. The moments when you get knocked down and you're wondering whether it's even worth it to get back up. See, those are the times when you've got to ask yourself, who am I going to be? And I want to be clear, this isn't just some vague platitude about building character. In recent years, we've actually been seeing a growing body of research that shows that skills like resilience and conscientiousness can be just as important to your success as your test scores or even your IQ. For instance, West Point cadets who scored high on things like grit and determination were more likely to complete basic training than those who ranked high on things like class rank, SAT scores, and physical fitness. So what we're seeing is that if you're willing to dig deep, if you're willing to pick yourself up when you fall, if you're willing to work until your weaknesses become your strengths, then you'll develop a set of skills that you can mold and apply to any situation you encounter, any job you might have, any crisis you might confront. But you gotta make that choice. And let me just share just a little secret before I end. As someone who has hired and managed hundreds of young people over the course of my career, whether it was during my time as a lawyer, as an administrator, as a university, a nonprofit manager, even now as First Lady, I have never once asked someone I was interviewing to explain a test score or a grade in a class. Never. I have never once made a hire just because someone went to an Ivy League school instead of a state school. Never. What I have looked for is what kind of person you are. Are you a hard worker? Are you reliable? Are you open to other viewpoints? Have you stepped outside of your own self-interest to serve others? Have you found a way to serve our country, whether in uniform or in your community? Again and again, I have seen that those are the qualities that I want on my team, because those are the qualities that move our businesses and schools and our entire country forward. And just understand this. Those are the qualities that you all already embody. They're the values you learned from your parents, from the communities you grew up in. And today, more than ever before, that's what the world needs.
Jasmine Mans is a Black American poet and artist from Newark, New Jersey. Recently, she published a collection entitled Black Girl Call Home. I will be reading a poem from it today called Dear First Lady. Dear First Lady, I watched my 4-year-old cousin as she sat in the mirror and placed my grandmother's pearls around her neck and said, "Do I look like Michelle Obama?" This little girl who does not know how to say Rice Krispies or macaroni and cheese properly said your name as it existed on her long list of heroes in between Snow White and Santa Claus. My little cousin does not know Jim Crow, how to interpret the Constitution or fight for human rights. She does not know your views on healthcare reform, your Princeton education, nor could she point to Chicago on a map. But she knows black Barbie dolls and nap time, how to identify your face in a landfill of misrepresented women who share our skin color like a sequin revolution. She knows your smile, Michelle. She knows the day her mother jumped up and down crying November 4th's black and red dresses. She knows how to say African American better than her own first name. You proved to her that identity belongs somewhere in this American dream. She knows that if she can find your face in the jumbled channels on television, there's a possibility she could stay up past her bedtime. You are everything her mother never got the chance to be. CoverGirl's Beauty of the Week, a love story sprinkled in an inaugural speech, a woman she can mistake for her mommy. She traded in her Dora the Explorer costume for a brooch of the American flag and a t-shirt with your husband's face on it. And for the first time, I could identify the revolution that would actually change the world. It's not in how many Barack and Martin comparisons we can make, but the idea of little boys jumping up and down on their bunk beds actually believing that they can fly. It's in little girls with dreams and their grandmother's pearls. My little cousin doesn't know about the war in Iraq. She just wonders if Sasha and Malia like to hula hoop and if you force them to eat their Flintstone vitamins too. Thank you for being a brown girl's dream come true, something tangible to look up to. I know that our skin color exists on timelines of women who had craters engraved in their backs, stretch marks similar to underground railroads, grandmothers who couldn't afford all the ingredients to American pie, women who laid down their lives started with chips and cracks in their spines, dying to ingest more estrogen into man's kind, creating tradition under the idea that if I can't afford my daughter the world, a college degree, or at least a decent meal tonight, I'll wrap my grandmother's pearls around her neck, like a gravity-stricken halo, and I'll whisper in her ear, "Baby, if I can't, you will." She did. Thank you. After reading this poem, I first thought, who do I look up to? Growing up, I wasn't really exposed to black culture. I idolized the one most shown on television, and very few were of color. And then, did they even look like me? And for a long time, they distorted my vision of beauty and what it takes to succeed. My hair, for instance, was something I was completely ashamed of growing up. It was hard to brush, and God knows it never behaved the same way more than once. My mom couldn't help because she didn't have hair like me. And my aunties on my dad's side, neither did they. It was so hard to find guidance in both sides of my family because as a biracial child, I was born to be different. My skin color was lighter than my dad's side, though darker than my mom's. My hair was curly compared to my mom's side, but wavy to my dad's. It was easier growing up to just straighten it. It didn't make me feel as outcasted. It made me feel more beautiful. But for my 10th birthday, my aunt bought me my first American Girl doll. I was so excited when I saw the cover of the box. I'd seen commercials on top of commercials advertising these dolls. All my friends had them too. And when I opened it up, the American Girl doll looked just like me. She had curly brown hair, brown skin, and brown eyes. And for the first time, I remember thinking when I saw her, she was perfect. The doll, whom I ended up naming Michelle, was my best friend. I learned to love my hair and the way I looked, just like how I loved it on Michelle. Even if what we looked like wasn't normalized on television, Michelle gave me someone to have something in common with. And over time, I learned to be that light for myself, just like Michelle was for me. So I guess if you ask me today, who do I look up to? Well, I would say the woman I see in every reflection and in every mirror.
While recognizing the importance of Dr. King and the work he did, I'd like to take a moment to remember events in Black history that played a role in laws and legislature, which have been put in place today.
It's 1954. The Brown v. Board of Education decision has just been made, stating that segregation in schools is illegal.
Fast forward 6 years to 1960 to meet 6-year-old Ruby Bridges, the first Black student to integrate into a white school in the South. November 14th, 1960 specifically, marked a special day in history in New Orleans, Louisiana.
In order to attend an integrated school, Black students need to pass an extremely difficult test. Ruby was one of 6 African Americans who passed that test. On this November day, federal marshals escorted Ruby and her mother to school.
Recalling her first trip to school, Ruby Bridges said,
I saw barricades and police officers and people everywhere. And when I saw all that, I immediately thought it was Mardi Gras. I had no idea they were here to keep me out of school.
Families withheld their children from attending William Frantz Elementary School. For 1 year, Ruby and teacher Barbara Henry,
The only teacher who would teach Ruby,
spent time on her lessons, and gradually, students returned to the building. Ruby is simply an example of the change that was fought hard for during the Civil Rights Movement. During these decades, African Americans and their allies fought to end disenfranchisement, racial segregation, and racial discrimination.
Ruby became a light in a community that would have never imagined integrated education. With the Ruby Bridges Foundation, she promotes tolerance and creates change throughout education. Today, we remember Ruby and her story for the role she played in initiating integrated education across the country.
This assembly is in honor of all the Black individuals who have been killed by police in the last decade. The following list is not comprehensive. There is no comprehensive government data on the topic of police brutality leading to the death of American citizens. There is no real accountability.
An independently compiled database found that more than 1,000 people died as a result of police harm in 2019. The researchers included deaths known to be caused by police due to being shot, beaten, restrained, intentionally hit by a police vehicle, pepper sprayed, tasered, or otherwise by officers on or off duty. People from across the country have died in police shootings.
26% were Black people,
18% Hispanic and Latinx people.
And 4% from other racial groups.
Black Americans account for less than 13% of the population, but they are shot and killed by the police at a rate that's over twice as high as for white Americans.
In fact, people of color are more likely to be victims of police harm in 2019 than they were in 2014. In 2019, 54% of those who died as a result of this harm and whose race was identified were people of color, including Asian, Black, Latinx, Native American, and Pacific Islander individuals, compared to 50% in 2014.
Despite the increased attention, only about 1% of police officers involved with these deaths are charged with a crime, and even less are convicted, according to the Mapping Police Violence. White supremacy has no right in the criminal justice system or anywhere else.
Black Lives Matter every second, every minute, every day. So with that, we say their names.
I just want to ask the question, who really cares to save a world in despair? Who really cares?
It follows a water crisis in Flint that began 4 years ago when the city started drawing water from the Flint River, exposing thousands of people to the toxic metal.
Mother, mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, brother, brother.
25, it's going to be a black male in a white t-shirt.
There's far too many of you dying.
14 million more
You
Americans
know
would be
we've got to
uninsured
find
next
a
year.
way
This deadly mass shooting
to
happened
bring
in
some
Parkland,
loving
Florida at
here today. Yeah. Father, Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Oh, picket lines and picket signs. Don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Oh, what's going on? Right everybody thinks we're wrong. Oh, but who are they to judge us? Simply cause our hair is long. Oh, you know we've got to find a way. Bring some understanding here today. Picket lines and picket signs. Don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me so you can see what's going on. Yeah, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. I'll tell you what's going on. Right on, right on. I wanna know what's going on, baby. Yes, I wanna know what's going on right now, people.
Thank you for sitting in on this year's Martin Luther King Jr. Assembly entitled A Light of Change. As you make your way out, please think of how you would want to be a light of change in this community. Is it by volunteering more, educating yourself on specific topics, or being a better friend? With such numerous, greatly inspirational people to look up to, like Martin Luther King Jr., Aretha Franklin, and so many more, our future together will be bright.